Chapter 5. Clint held up the group just outside of town so they could go over their cover story again. "I don't want to be a spice merchant again," Ramza complained. "It sets a bad precedent." "What in Ciri's name are you talking about?" Tristan asked, shading his eyes. "Oh no, Ramza said, waving a finger at Tristan. "You sleep in my caravan while I take care of your horse for the past few weeks, eating food fit for any king, and... "Okay, I get it," Tristan said, raising his hands and turning to Clint. "Apparently, this time I'm on his side," he said, nodding at Ramza, who was still looking a little flustered. "So, why does it set a bad precedent?" Clint asked, raising an eyebrow at Ramza. Ramza let out an exasperated sigh and ran his finger through his beard, jangling the beads. "Food is sacred to my people, and you know I got no issues with killing mages. But when we make people think that we're spice traders and then start shooting up the place, well, it just doesn't sit right." Clint stared at him for a second and then looked back at Tristan. "And you're on his side?" Tristan clenched his jaw, grinding his teeth. "It looks that way." Clint sighed. "And how about you, Artemis?" he asked. "What?" she asked, looking distracted. "Are you okay?" "What? Of course I am." "'Cause you haven't been yourself lately," Clint said, eyeing her more carefully. "Yeah, you haven't been laughing at my tremendous jokes lately," Ramza said, looking over. "Ha." Tristan burst out as he stifled his laugh with a cough. "Still on your side, big guy?" Artemis shook her head. "You boys just don't understand women." Clint gave her a suspicious look, but she just stared him down in that way that only women can. "Fine," Clint said, turning away from her glare. "Then what exactly do you propose, Ramza?" "The mines," he said, puffing his chest out. "That's it? That's your master plan, the mines?" Tristan said sarcastically. Ramza deflated visibly. "Clint, I'm back on your side," Tristan said derisively. "Hey, next time I'm going to drag you behind the wagon," Ramza said, turning on Tristan. "Hold on a sec." Clint interrupted. "What did you mean by the mines?" Ramza perked up a bit, smiling. "Well, way I see it, this is Silver City." "Brilliantly deduced, my large friend," Tristan said sarcastically. Clint shot him a look that said, "Shut up, or I'll shut you up." Tristan understood. "Well, I think that plenty folk come round these parts looking for work. Why can't we just be one of them?" Ramza asked. "Means we don't gotta trick nobody with no backstory that can get, confusing." Ramza had been shy of elaborate backstories ever since he messed up the job in Copper Creek. Now he preferred to stay back and watch the camp any time they were on a job. Problem was that Caton was a desert country, and a wagon sitting outside of town would draw undue attention. It would be easier to just come in looking for work. At that point, we don't even need a backstory. We could just be ourselves, Tristan muttered. "Yay, Clint, I like just being me," Ramza said. "What do you think, Artemis?" Clint asked, glancing over. Sorry, what did you say?" she said, flustered. "What is the matter with you?" Tristan asked. "Nothing, I'm fine. Yes, I think it's better we just come strolling in looking for work. Makes everything easy." "You sure you're—" "I'm fine," she said, cutting him off. "Let's just get this over with. This heat is murder on my skin," she said, wiping her hand across her forehead. She dug her spurs into her horse and started into town without giving anyone time to reply. Clint stared at her knowingly as Tristan moved over, waiting for her to get out of earshot. "You know it's not that hot yet. Sun's not even out in full," Tristan said quietly. "It's plenty warm," Clint replied. "Ramza's not sweating much," Tristan said, nodding toward the big man. "She's fine," Clint said. "You just stay away from any liquor. I can't babysit everyone on this crew." Tristan gave Clint a dirty look, before moving his horse to follow Artemis. "Damn it," Clint muttered under his breath. "Why do I got to piss everyone off today?" As they made their way into town, Clint's eyes got wide and bright as he saw the size of the place. There had to be 10,000 people living in Silver City. The town even had their own breed of nobles, which were really just second and third generation wealthy merchants, but that was close enough. You could scam a dozen people and not even a quarter of the town would find out, Clint said in awe. "Clint, mind what you say," Artemis said, looking around for anyone that might have overheard. Swarms of people moved through the street. "This place is pretty rich, Clint," Tristan said, irritated. "How are we going to afford rooms?" That was a good question. Clint hadn't anticipated Silver City being so nice. The main streets were actual stone and not just dirt with wagon wheel ruts in it. They had been away from civilization for quite some time, he realized. "We may need to work in the mines after all." Ramza said the four of them got lost in the throng of people and wagons moving through the streets. They stopped to ask where they could find cheap lodgings. "You're going to want to head down to the Raft District. Stop in the Crystal Palace. A man can find work, women, and rum all under one roof," the stranger said with a grin that showed various missing teeth. Clint thanked the man and moved the group through the winding cobblestone streets, his horse's shoes giving off a satisfying clack, and they made their way to the Crystal Palace. I think I'd rather sleep in my caravan outside of town," Ramza said as they pulled up to the Crystal Palace. As they'd entered the Raft District, the cobblestone streets had quickly turned back to dirt. This area of town was dirty, and not the kind of dirty from not being swept on a regular basis. No, this was the kind where the dirt protected your floor from vomit. The Crystal Palace, as it was so eloquently named, didn't look as decrepit as the rest of the places on the street, but it did have a distinct odour floating around it. It smelled like sweat and tobacco, with just the barest hint of urine. "I like it," Tristan said, smiling as he dismounted his horse, tying it to the trough in front. "You would," Artemis said as she looked behind her quickly and then back to the group. "What if Ramza and I set up camp a little ways out of town? We can keep a low profile." It was unlike Artemis to turn down a bed for a piece of hard dirt. "That's fine. Just meet us back here tomorrow by mid-morning," Clint said knowingly. "Noon," Tristan chimed in hurriedly. Clint levelled a flat gaze at the man. "I'm waking you at sunup, whether you want to or not." "Don't bother me none if you feel like getting punched at sunup," Tristan said as he pushed his way into the tavern. Clint sighed and tied off his horse as he went in after Tristan. "So you know you can sleep in my caravan if you want to, Artie," Ramza said, smiling. "No," she said more hurriedly than she'd wanted. "I mean, no thanks, darling." Ramza didn't say anything, just nodded and started comb his hand through his beard, clanking his beads. Artemis sighed, and she knew she'd hurt the big man's feelings again. But seriously, he needed to toughen up a bit, she thought. Clint's senses were assaulted by the thick smell of tobacco as he made his way into the Crystal Palace. The place was large and held at least 30 tables, most of which were occupied by men in various states of inebriation. He got sight of Tristan at the bar, a mug of beer already in hand, and made his way over to him. "Beer ain't liquor," Tristan said defensively as Clint sat down next to him. "I'll have one too," he said to the bartender as he tossed a few coins onto the bar. Clint was surprised at how well the bar was actually maintained. It wasn't anything fancy, but the wood was sturdy and well taken care of. Above the bottles of liquor that lined the back wall behind the bar hung a sign that read, "Sometimes too much drink is barely enough. MT." Clint nodded to the sign as he took a large swig of his beer. "You think that one day we'll ever get rid of 'em all?" Clint asked. "Nope," Tristan said as he wiped foam from his mouth. "Yeah." Clint sighed as he took another swig. The bartender waddled over and levelled a flat gaze at the two men. "You know that this is happy hour, right?" the bartender said. "You boys fallen on some hard times? Don't recall seeing you sad sacks in here before?" "We just got in, looking for some work if you know any," Clint said. "The mine's always looking for fresh corpses. Just go down there and talk to Cecil. He's the foreman," the bartender said, turning to walk away. Clint held up a large silver crown that caused the man to stop in his tracks, eyeing the coin. He set the coin on the bar and slid it over. "You wouldn't happen to know where we might find any other work?" Clint asked. The bartender snatched the coin with deft hands and nodded over to a well-dressed man, surrounded by half a dozen rougher-looking men. Well, he was really just more clean-looking than well-dressed. "Name's Switch. He runs everything you're looking for." The man paused for half a second. "You pull a job, and he can fence whatever goods you collect. You want to gamble, he'll tell you where and when." Clint cocked an eyebrow, pushing up his Stetson for dramatic effect. His piercing blue eyes worked on more than just girls. "You mean that he doesn't provide any work?" Clint said slowly. "Don't make me ask for my coin back." The bartender levelled a knowing gaze at Clint. "He won't give you no jobs until he knows you. He's of the more cautious sort, that's how he's still in charge. This ain't no back hills watering hole. Switch runs things round here, and he's careful with who he does business with." Clint nodded knowingly. "And I can find him here every night?" "Most nights," the bartender corrected. "And what if I had someone he trusted ask him about any work he might know of?" Clint said, producing another coin. The bartender eyed it greedily. "Well, it never hurts to ask, but I don't make no promises," the bartender said, holding out his hand for the coin. Clint nodded, setting the coin in his hand. He turned, letting the bartender go off to help his other customers. He knew he'd be back later with the information. "You know I could have told you everything you just heard, and you could have given me that bit of silver," Tristan said, swallowing the rest of his beer. Clint snorted. "We got a name and a face. Maybe if we can lift something off some nobles, then we'll be able to make a few coins here. Besides, I got a good feeling about this town." "You've always got a good feeling. I hate how damn positive you are all the time," Tristan said, staring longingly at the bottom of his glass. "No worries, my friend. Looks like all we gotta do to get in with the local riffraff is rob some unsuspecting nobles. Not like we haven't done that before." "Why can't we just plan it out on our own? Let Artemis take a long shot?" Tristan asked. "Because it's too dangerous. We're better off letting the local crime boss get us in with Silas and taking him out the first good chance we get. Overall, it's much safer. We don't know Slius's sub-power or his vice. What if his skin deflects fast-moving objects? You remember Gentle?" Tristan smiled as he thought back. "Yeah, had to stick my knife in him real slow. Now that was satisfying." "Exactly. Without knowing his sub-power, we need to play this one safe. So for now, we are strictly gathering information," Clint said. "Yay. Well, leave me out of it. I should have stayed back in Willow Bend." Clint stared at him for a long second. "You've been following Ravon long enough to know he never stays in a place once he's killed, and his sliding makes him almost impossible to track." Tristan snorted as he signalled the bartender to bring him another beer. "We'll get him soon, Trist. I promise if we find a lead, then we'll drop whatever job we're on," Clint said, putting his hand on his friend's shoulder. "You just pull yourself together. I need you in the game. Trist, I can't do this without you." Tristan looked down at his beer and then back at Clint. He still saw that little boy that he'd watched grow up. Remembering that sent his mind in a tailspin. Clint could see the longing in his eyes. He hadn't been right since Claire died. Tristan had once been the best lawman this continent had ever seen. Clint had never known his father. He'd left his mom soon after she was pregnant. Clint's mother was Claire's sister, and when Tristan married her, he watched over the boy since he was 6 years old. But now, he was constantly adrift and drunk. Clint couldn't blame him, though. He felt that same twang of pain all too well. And the one thing Tristan didn't realize was that killing Ravon wouldn't do a damn thing to make that pain go away. Then again, maybe he did.